Welcome to the Room of Lives. I'm your host, Neil. In this part of my conversation with Pratim, we talk about the multiplicity of time. What if at your death, your life really flashes past your eyes, but in real time? Is it rebirth or eternal recurrence? Is there any correspondence between the fracturing of objective time, say in relativity, and of subjective time in non-ordinary states?
Yeah, I also accidentally took like a high dose of LSD, and what was happening in my outer reality, and I was in the tantric orgy, and I
But you didn't even know.
Huh?
You didn't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I was crashing into people. I was doing all sort of things outside that I did. Inside, I was having my own experience, and that outside I was doing, and I felt like I was stuck in the eternal now.
Yeah.
And nothing else existed except me right now.
Yeah.
And I think somehow my ahankara, the I am maker, was still online. And so because there's only the now, and my I am maker depends on past and future to make an I, it was scared. It was like, I became a rock star and I had the adulation of all these fans, but it was like, there is no point to this because...
And you didn't hypothetically become a rock star. You actually had that experience, you told me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was like...
You had that experience of being a rock star, and then all the people who were adoring you, you saw that it was just forms of you.
Just forms of me,
So what is the point?
What is the point? Yeah. And it was just like,
But all of this stuff was happening in the eternal now.
Yes.
So this is my question about the eternal now, is that when someone says just this moment or now, there's a picture of a single static moment in time. Nothing is changing. The moment anything is changing, there is time. So how could you have had all these experiences of becoming a rock star, all of these things in just one eternal now?
So at least who knows if my experience it was the eternal now, but what I call the eternal now in that experience, it was like the game of life simulation that I have shown you. Did you remember where those pixels they come? And so in the game of life, it's like what happens in the next instant is like deterministic.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So in my eternal now, it was like that. Like time is still rolling and the time being rolled along with it. And pixel by pixel, things are updating, but in a deterministic fashion.
There is no way for it to be any other way.
There's no way for it.
So is it as if the entire time course is already laid out in front of you? So it's not like the future is a different unknown thing than the present.
I only know the future right now. I mean, I only know the right now. So just like in the game of life, the pixels only know right now.
Yeah.
If you zoom out and see, I know the rules, you can see, this will be the future state,
Yeah.
But the pixels only know the right now. And so I only knew the right now, and there was nothing else. There was no, I did not remember the moment before, the moment, it was just like right now. And,
there was something that I wanted to talk to you about this time thing is you, at that time when that was happening, you were in this eternal now, having this certain quote-unquote experience, but everyone else in the party was watching you just twisting and tumbling around people, crashing into people, I don't know, falling into a pool or whatever it is. And the question would be like, were those two things happening at the same time? And that's a naive question to ask, because that assumes that there's a single stream of time in which it is happening. You were maybe tumbling around for, I don't know, maybe like an hour. So the naive thing would be to like, oh no, there's no eternal now or anything. You would just have that experience internally for 1 hour, because it has to add up to the same time. If you say that everything happens in the same time stream, but the more I learn about things, not just about spirituality, but also about science, is that time is not a single stream that flows in the universe. There are like little branches of time that can split off and rejoin. And so this seems to be one of those things where it's like a split off into something that might not even be called time anymore. Maybe that eternal, now it's just time didn't make sense then, or it was out of time or something. But the flow of time for other people in the party kept on going in their world. But your time world had kind of like split off from theirs. If you hadn't taken that dose, you would still be in sort of roughly the same time stream as them. Oh, hey, what time is it? Oh, 7:30. Oh, we got here at 7. Everyone agrees. Now suddenly there's a split and you no longer agree with their version of time. And so that's kind of interesting. And there's a movie called Waking Life.
Yeah.
And it was directed by an Austin director called Richard Linklater. And it's a very kind of whimsically, almost like a painted movie that is about lucid dreaming. So the movie looks very dreamy. And I remember watching a scene in that movie. And in that scene, there was a couple lying in bed and they were talking. And the guy said, he was like, you know, they say that when you come to the end of your life, you're about to die, your entire life flashes in front of you. But does it flash like super fast? Maybe to the outsider person, it flashes by in front of your eyes for a very short amount of time. But internally, you might be reliving that experience in real time.
In real time as well.
In real time. So it's like a rebirth into that life. And so then I was just thinking like, oh, would that be like your entire life kind of gets reset again to the moment of your birth? And then you see your life, quote unquote, flash past your eyes, or you just like live through that experience and reach the point of death again. And then once again, it flashes. So you just keep this cycling through the same life. And, you know, Nietzsche talked about eternal recurrence. There was a philosopher, I haven't actually read his theory or his philosophy, but he talked about the idea of going through this life again and again and again and again. It was like, well, you know, what kind of life would you like to live if you just pointlessly went through it again and again and again? There is a certain kind of life that you would still like to live. And so I guess he wrote something about that. So I was just thinking about that. And basically about realms of time. That time can split off into two different realms and no longer be like a unified single stream. And the first time that this was brought up in physics was actually in relativity. So Isaac Newton had a certain picture of the universe in which there was something called universal time. Like you can imagine time ticking the same for everyone. Tick tock, that's universal time. But Albert Einstein, when he wrote down the theory of relativity, I think this was maybe even in the special theory of relativity, time became relative.
Right.
Just like space. And different people or objects traveling at different speeds with respect to each other would experience slightly different times. Like there are ways if you go fast enough, for your time to split off from the other person's time and for you to experience longer time and then come back or whatever, and then you have aged more.
Yeah, it's like a twin.
Yeah,
you
the twin
take a
paradox.
twin and you take
The movie Interstellar actually used that because you went close to that black hole in order for time to speed up or something, and then come back or something like that. So that broke the notion of universal time. It's as if everyone has their private version of time that they carry around, and it's only synced because we're moving at the same speed at this moment. So there have been some things that leads to some situations that I've been very interested in. Like one of those is what happens as you watch someone fall into a black hole. Like it's a thought experiment, but if you watch someone fall into a black hole, there is this thing called the event horizon around the black hole, and no light that's inside the event horizon can reach out. So that means you will actually never see the person beyond the event horizon.
Right.
You will never see them fall into the event horizon. In fact, the closer the person gets to the event horizon, the slower the light rays get that are trying to get away from him towards your eyes. So your visual is going to be that as they fall into the black hole, they decelerate until they come to a standstill at the event horizon. And they maybe get warped all over the event horizon or something, but they never fall through. They just gradually, asymptotically become still. Yeah. But that's not their experience. They're falling right through whatever the fuck their experience is. But it's just weird. It's like, on the one hand, you see something happening that slowly comes to a standstill. And on the other hand, their experience is completely different. Maybe they get stretched so fast as they go through the event horizon that like time speeds up to infinity or something. Yeah. You know? So a lot of people were like shocked by these theories. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like time just like breaks, warps and weird shit like this. And sometimes I do wonder that when we talk about these like eternal now and time related things within the context of spirituality, like a hardcore scientist would come and say, I mean, stop all this nonsense. Like, we know about time. Yes, okay, it's a little wibbly wobbly, but we have written it down. It's in relativity. Yes, time is a little bit nonlinear, but like this. Not like that. What is this? You took some drugs, like you didn't go near a black hole. What is this eternal now business? So both camps admit the nonlinearity of time, but their versions are very different. Like the spiritual camp and the scientific camp. And one might say there doesn't need to be any correspondence, between the two. But I feel like ultimately there has to be some correspondence, because when people talk about time, scientists usually talk about something called objective time that you can measure. But there is subjective time, which is the passage of time as is felt by conscious beings. There's going to be some kind of bridge. Like, is there some kind of map? Like the things that you're talking about here, your experiences, or the hypothetical experience of the life flashing past your eyes and things like that. Those are kind of like subjective experience.
Right.
And so what do the laws of time in nature, do they have anything to do with the subjective weirdnesses of time? That's something that I've thought about. Like, it would be so cool to just marry those two from the two worlds. Just say, hey, look, there's some commonality.
So is the notion of time like a thing we have imposed on reality? Like, how... what is like a map versus the terrain, and so if time being a regular thing we have imposed on reality for the convenience that it offers, standardized education in a lot of domains offers convenience for technological progress, but it is still a map. It is not the actual terrain, right? And so part of me is thinking like time is always subjective. We have just taken one version of it and made it objective time.
Yeah, that could be the start of the flaw in the first place. So when it becomes like when you notice these situations in which it splits off and there are multiple versions, that might not be the paradox. It might have been created in the first place because we decided to agree on something called objective time.
Right. Yeah, and as per my subjective experiences with time splitting off, I have had that. Maybe not on this trip, but on some other trip. There, I think I've told you this, where I recognize that as I die, let's say the blood and oxygen to the brain stops, right? And so the brain is dying. It's not all dead, right? And so as more and more areas to turn offline, time starts expanding to infinity, and the thoughts in my mind start distilling into an essence emotion. And as more and more areas go offline, time tends to infinity. It doesn't become infinity.
What does it mean, time tends to infinity?
Yeah, because it is not infinite, but it feels like, let's say the essence emotion is happiness, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm experiencing happiness to thought infinity.
Yeah.
Or the essence emotion is fear, and I'm experiencing fear to thought infinity. There's not really infinity because it ends, but it feels like that. It feels
while
like
you were in that quote unquote temporary whatever time field, it feels eternal.
Yeah, it feels eternal.
But then it ends at some point.
And so like this notion, I mean, I can easily see how the notions of heaven and hell.
Oh yeah, I was just about to bring it up.
Yeah,
because it always seemed dumb to me that in Christianity, for the actions of a finite life, you're condemned to an eternity of heaven or eternity of hell. And what the hell? That's not good management. If you're a corporation, that's not how you do HR.
That the punishment of eternity, may make you do things, right. So, but so those might be human impositions, but at least in this experience, I was like, oh, maybe that's what they talk about. I mean, eternal heaven. It's like, yeah, because this my last emotion, if it distilled into a negative emotion, it would be for eternity, and it will be hell. And if it distilled into a positive one, and
or it could be anything in between too.
Yeah, anything
it could be
in
something
between.
That's like 80% positive, but 20% kind of, and then you just stay that way for eternity.
But I mean, like, yeah, I mean, it depends. But I mean, I haven't experienced the whole range. So that I did think later that the Christians and Muslims, whoever believes in this eternal heaven, eternal hell, they bury their dead, right?
Yeah.
And so this subjective aliveness that stays at the point of death, it might stay longer. So even though the person is dead, let's say the heartbeat stops, so we declare them dead. But not all billions cells in the body die at that same time, right? So different organs turn off at different percentages at different times. So some subjective awareness may still stay alive. And like we said, even though on outside time, that awareness might just be 10 minutes extra after they have been declared dead. But the subjective might be millennia long, who knows how long. So
Oof. Yeah.
And if you bury the dead, and it might stay even longer. Then as in Hinduism, you burn the dead. And so, I mean, this is just speculation,
Yeah.
And so that's why the notions of afterlife are also different in these two traditions, where then you burn, you free the soul to take another incarnation. Whereas here you keep them in this state until the returning of the Christ or something.
When this happened to you, what was the essence that stayed for you? Like, a final eternal essence when everything else shut down?
I can't remember now. But
man, you were in it for eternity.
I know. So the one thing was, on one occasion, it was fear.
You have had multiple of these?
Fear. Maybe that's. I mean, who knows? And I think there was a time there was happiness as well. Just like peace and bliss.
Thanks for showing up to the Room of Lives to hang out with Pratim and me today. Take care. Until next time.